Hello there. Welcome to the post-OTA, post-minicamp edition of the In the Huddle podcast. It is me, Jason Lockenford, this week, joined by everybody's favorite NFL analyst, Brian Baldinger. Our buddy, Paul Dukes, put him up, is on vacation, but he will reconvene with us soon. We got a lot of stuff to get to here, Baldy. We're going to cover some of the teams in our AFC East and NFC East preview that you were able to put eyes on yourself during mini camp season. So we will go through those two divisions, give our take on where they stand. But I think we've got to start here, my friend, with the Trevor Lawrence contract. And it's always a game of leapfrog, right? It's right guy at right place at right time to sort of jump to the head of the class, even if maybe he hasn't been a top 5 or maybe even a top 10 quarterback in some instances. But we know where Trevor Lawrence was drafted, 1-1. We know that this owner's been desperate for a true franchise quarterback for a while. He overdrafted and overpaid Blake Bortles, right? A far lesser quarterback than Lawrence. But, man, $55 million, Baldy. You were down in Miami. I'm sure it didn't go unnoticed by their front office with Tua in a contract negotiation. Brock Purdy's got to be licking his chops right now, thinking if those guys got 55 and I go to another Super Bowl, I'm getting 60 plus. Here we go again, right?
Yeah, well, we went through it last year. We went through it last year with Jalen Hurts, with Lamar, with Joe Burrow. And they just all, like you said, just a game of leapfrog. You got to have them. You can't win without one. But, I've seen all kinds of memes and stats, like if you compare Trevor to Daniel Jones, they're almost identical stats. If you compare Trevor to Gardner Minshew, the stats are almost identical. So you say, well, stat-wise, but, the game isn't just about stats.
Yeah.
Trevor does have a better arm. He's got a release. He's a committed student. He's got everything that you want. They just haven't won. I was there in Nashville, Jason, last year. Week 18, all they had to do was beat the Titans. And they won the division. There is no Houston Texans. They win the division. They couldn't gain a yard when they needed a yard. The Tennessee Titans with nothing to play for, they beat Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was another collapse like we saw in the playoffs the year before. But, if you get Christian Kirk back and you draft Brian Thomas and you get the offensive line together, which wasn't very good. They didn't run the ball well last year. What all I'm saying is Trevor's one of those guys. You got to give him a lot of help. You got to give him a lot of, if you're not committed, if you don't have the run game, if you don't have your number one receiver, like all these things, you can't put the team on his shoulders. And I don't know that many can do that. But I guess the question, and we ask this every year, Jason, is where's it going to go? And is it going to end? And is there going to be, the buck stops here? Because we know that Dak and Tua are out there looking for theirs. And the longer they wait, probably the more it inflates. So, but we know that if, the Atlanta Falcons told you, if you're just going to plug these guys into pretty good rosters, you're not winning anything. And so that's kind of where the league is right now.
It is interesting to me, Baldy. When I see stuff like this happen, and it's probably going to happen because it's football economics 101. But if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts, if I'm the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, if I'm the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm already saying, our guy's already a bargain. When you getting the true top 5, top 6 quarterbacks done, the earlier the better every time is always going to be good business aside of catastrophic injury. Because at some point, Joe Flacco is going to be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. At some point, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence. At some point soon, it might be Dak Prescott. Getting the real ones done ASAP, boy, you're spiting yourself if you don't.
Well, that San Francisco is going to be faced with that real soon with Brock. And so, and I'm sure that he's willing to play out his rookie contract. I don't think he wants to play out his rookie contract. But, next year at this time, and I just got done talking to Nick Bosa about the 49ers and just what Jed York has kind of, starting with Eddie DeBartolo, but Jed York and how they somehow, the great organization, San Francisco, Baltimore to a large degree, Philadelphia for sure. They look at their star players and they get out in front of this stuff.
Yeah.
And they get them signed. Now, you go back 6-7 years ago, they thought they were getting out in front and getting Carson Wentz done. They didn't need to. And, it kind of backfired on them. But they recognized that, we can't stop what our philosophy is and just taking care of their own. And when you win and teams take care of their own, that's a place that not many players get to play in.
Well, Baldy, let's start our review in the NFC East, and let's start with the team, that won the NFC East, and they've got a quarterback situation. And this one to me is really kind of tricky because he's not 25 or 26. You know what I mean? It's not, okay, we're buying all this promise. The rookie learning curve is over, and we're getting him in the prime of his prime. Dak's got a little more tread on his tires. This team has not performed well in the playoffs. Jerry Jones has not wanted to spend money in recent years. He just hasn't. Amari Cooper at $20 million was too rich for his blood. He's got a CD Lamb situation. I don't really love this roster. How do you thread this needle? Like, do you capitulate? Do you make him play it out for a year and trade him? What do you do?
Well, they've won 12 games 3 years in a row. One of those years, Dak missed a good chunk of the season and Cooper Rush came in. They won 12 games. Now, you could say, weak schedule, and it was last year. They had the Jets, the Giants, Washington. They had a bunch of the weak teams in the league, and they had a hard time beating teams with a winning record. It just didn't happen much, So, I played for the Cowboys, Jason. I know the history of that organization pretty well. Like to look at the roster right now, especially at the running back position, it just doesn't look right to me. Like, you could bring Zeke back, but we know Zeke isn't. We've seen Zeke's decline. We've watched it. We've all watched it. And he's not. I mean, you could come back and maybe Zeke can give us 100 really good carries and goal line. And he might, but that's not your run. That can't be a running game. Deuce Vaughn can't be your run game. Like, it looks like, I just can't believe they went to a draft in their offseason. They didn't pick up any running backs. Rico Dowdy, they're just guys. So that's that. They spent their number 1 and 2 pick on offensive linemen, Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe, and maybe Beebe can play center. I've never seen him play center. And maybe Guyton can nail down the left tackle job. They've had a lot of success drafting linemen high. Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Travis Smith. Tyler Smith. They've had a lot of success. Tyron Smith. So you better hope and pray that they've continued on that trajectory, because if those guys don't hit, or if they take time to really develop the way a lot of guys do, if they take time, or if they don't hit, this thing could fall apart quickly.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a hell of a hard time getting close to 12 wins, Baldy. That's just me. That's this division. It's tried and true forever. Whoever wins it one year doesn't win it the next. Somebody else's turn. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here to say if that trend holds again this year, that the team to bounce back and win the division is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, just real quick. I just saw Dan Quinn. We'll get to Washington here in this discussion, but the Cowboys under Dan Quinn, 3 years, Jason, they led the league in takeaways.
Yeah.
3 year in mass total, they led the league. That means all those extra bats to Dak and what was the number one offense, basically 1, 2, 3 over the last 3 years. All those extra bats, field position, defensive touchdown scored. Now, is that trend going to continue? Okay, with the change of coordinator.
Regression.
Okay. Well, they've made that change. And so, Dan leaves, and this is the decision that they decided to do. So, I think we all respect, Zimmer, but that's going to be hard to think that how Mike plays and how Dan played, that they could continue that trend. That's that.
Well, and Baldy, how Mike coaches and how Dan coaches. One is a lot more love them up, and the other is a lot more beat them down, no?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's a difference, a big change in personality. That's for sure. So it's a tough love if you get that love from Zim, and we'll see how they respond. We'll see how they respond, So that's that. But, you said, okay, is Philadelphia the team? I think they are. the stink that season ended with last year, I thought Howie Roseman did him, and I've been critical of Howie, but I don't know that any general manager and owner, Jeffrey Lurie, I don't know that anybody could have retooled this roster to kind of make this stink go away. And part of that stink was just the lousy quarterback play that they got down the stretch. You can't do anything more for your quarterback than to go out and do what they did. Whether it's getting Saquon or locking up your receivers or locking up Landon Dickerson and, Jordan Mailata, and filling all those voids, and then just adding pieces defensively, and then adding two pretty good coordinators. Let's face it, Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore are pretty good coaches. So, this thing is it's made for them to run away with this thing right now, Jace. Now they got to go put it all together. A lot is on Nick. The spotlight's on Nick Sirianni to make this thing work. There was some conversation with him at the end of the season, maybe Nick's not the guy, but let's face it.
Yeah.
Nick took over an organization, a team that was 4-11-1, and he's had them in the playoffs 3 years in a row, and within 30 minutes of winning a Super Bowl. So he's done something, and they've gotten off the starts, Jason. 2 years ago they were 8-0. Last year they were 10-1. Whatever he's doing, he's done a lot of things right. Now it could be beneficial of the schedule and a lot of things, but still, no team has gotten off to those kind of starts the last 2 years.
Yeah, and a fast start in that division. Again, if Dallas is down like we think they're going to be, you're right. They probably run away with it. I like the Eagles and gambling markets. This is the In the Huddle podcast. This is our post-OTA mini camp edition. We're breaking down the NFC East and the AFC East. We're halfway through the NFC East. If you're enjoying this, you can catch me, Baldy, and our buddy Carl Dukes every week. You can subscribe to us YouTube channel. We're on Twitter Live. We're Spotify, Odyssey app. It's pretty easy to find us. All right, Baldy, you mentioned Dan Quinn, so let's go to the Commandos next. Ron Rivera is a really good man. He's a really good leader, but I always felt like he was miscast as the omnipotent god of all football operations, coaching and personnel with the Commanders. This new regime, in part because of that, I don't think is inheriting a whole lot, but I have been struck by some things with them, Baldy. Carl and I talked last week about the Seahawks and how they're taking the long view to their rebuild, right? A guy like Ron Rivera, who had all the power, is not there anymore. And rather than throw gum and scotch tape at a whole bunch of holes with a whole bunch of free agents, they seem to want to evaluate what they have and play the long game. Yeah. Washington, to me, has been weird. They couldn't wait to sort of make Marty Herney, who I think is a hell of an evaluator, they couldn't wait to put him out to pasture. They couldn't wait to get Sam Howell out of the building. I don't really – that one I think they may regret, even with them obviously drafting a quarterback. Dan Quinn's a great defensive coordinator. I don't think Dan Quinn thought they were hiring him, and I don't think they thought they were hiring Dan Quinn, but that's where it ended up. And then they've run out and they've seemed to want to kind of do the old Dan Snyder thing of we're going to really use free agency as a big tool for us, even though we're not ready to compete. I think Adam Peters is a really smart guy, but I got to say some of what they've done has given me a little pause.
Well, I would say this. I mean, it looks and feels like I was there a week ago last Friday, Jason. Dan invited me down to watch practice. And I would say that the general manager, Adam Peters, and the coach, they seem like they're joined at the hip. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good start. They did spend a lot on a lot of players in free agency, a lot of new names, Austin Eckler and, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin. And, but without really going crazy with the money. Yeah. I mean, a lot of one-year deals. Try to get some leadership in there. Tyler Biadasz at center, guys that have won, guys that have played at good levels, that have had success in this league. It seems like they're bringing this in. They've got Joe Witt coming in from Dallas to run the defense. I think it's a good hire. I think Joe's a good coach. So I think they're going to coach him up really hard. I saw a lot of energy out there. I saw a lot of enthusiasm. We'll see if Cliff Kingsbury is the guy for Jaden Daniels. Everything that you hear about Jaden, as you would expect, is incredibly positive.
Sure.
From the players to the coaches, type of person, first in, last out, like all those things that you want your guy to do, he's doing. And so I feel like they're on the right path right here. It's just that, that building has got just a lot of, and maybe Josh Harris and all the things that they've done. They look a lot more engaged from the front office. They've got legitimate, men and women that have won, that have had success in different endeavors. Like they're bringing that culture to Washington, and it had to change. And I feel like that's the start. Because for example, I was just talking to Nick Bosa this morning, Jason, and he's like, I played for the best organization in football. You think anybody in Washington over the last 20 years have said, I played for the best organization in football? Like nobody says that. I feel like they have the chance right now from scratch to, and you said the long view, to do this thing with the long, they have a chance, if they really start with the way they started and they continue along this path.
It's going to be a long road. It just kind of felt like the George Allen over the hill gang. Even guys like Fowler and Chin, who aren't old for their body, you know what I mean? Like they've been through some stuff. Like it's going to be interesting. For me, Baldy, if you were to ask me what, from a roster personnel standpoint, is the biggest upset of the whole offseason, I would probably have to say the New York Football Giants not bringing in anybody who looks like off the bat legitimate competition for Daniel Jones. That is a stunner to me, especially in the generational, at least in terms of how many went how high. I don't know how they're all going to turn out, but this in real time was a generational quarterback draft. I'm stunned that there isn't somebody else on that roster. He had better competition last year in terms of a winning NFL game standpoint with Tyrod Taylor than what he's facing right now. Like, I just, that boggles my mind.
Well, Drew Lock has started 5 games, Jason, in 3 years. Okay. There's not a lot there. All right. And, he was beaten out 3 years ago by Geno Smith, flatly beaten out in Seattle in open competition. And so even Drew Lock has resigned. Daniel Jones is starter. Like, he doesn't even look like there's any competition.
Not even real competition.
Not even a competition. So, and really, this regime of Brian Dable and Joe Shane, they didn't draft Daniel Jones. This would have been the perfect time to turn the leaf, and really, and I'm sure they made their efforts to jump up and try to do it. They've got major holes on this roster. You can overpay for Brian Burns like they did, and maybe he makes Thibodeau better and Dexter Lawrence inside, and Bobby Okereke was a good signing last year. It's an awfully young secondary. That front better win and win regularly.
Yeah,
because they got so much youth back there. They're counting on 2 rookies, Newbin and Phillips, their second and third round picks. They're counting on those guys probably to start right now at safety and nickel corner. And I don't know that they have a 3 technique at defensive tackle. There's just holes. They don't know if Evan Neal can win the right tackle job.
Right.
They're running back. My brother played for the Giants, Jason. I followed the Giants since, before O.J. Anderson was there. They've always had big backs. Always. Yeah. They don't have any backs. Like Devin Singletary's a good kid. He could be a rotational player like he was in Houston last year. And they drafted him in Buffalo, so Joe knows him, Brian knows him. And, he's a dependable kid, pretty healthy. But, he's 190 pounds. Like, they don't have anybody that can push a pile on the roster, which, the Jets went out and drafted 230 pounds, running backs. They don't have a big back on the roster. It just seems bizarre to me, like the holes. And so now you're asking, all right, Brian Dable, was he coach of the year 2 years ago? You're asking a coach of the year type of effort. And fingers crossed that Daniel Jones stays healthy. Daniel Jones makes Malik Neighbors look like rookie of the year. They've got Darren Waller, no surprise, steps away from the game. That was a big, huge miss last year. And so to me, they might just be turning their wheels here right now.
Like if the bottom falls out and the quarterback in Carolina takes a step or two forward, could these guys be like top 2, top 3 draft pick come April? Maybe even dead last.
Well, they picked 6 this year. They picked 5 and 7 a couple years ago. I mean, they've been picking at the top of the draft here, Jason. I mean, look, it started honestly, and I think they know this. I'm not making any revelation here, but they should have franchised Daniel Jones and basically gave the contract to Saquon. You have the face of your organization, and built around that, and let Daniel Jones play for his contract. And they probably wouldn't have done it, and they'd be in a situation where they
the non-exclusive tag, like Lamar Jackson. Go out into the market. If you think you can get more than this 1-year tag, knock yourself out, kid. We'll take the draft picks for you. Like, it's not rocket science.
Yeah. So, look, they won a playoff game 2 years ago, but on that course that year, Saquon had his best season, okay, and he stayed healthy, and Daniel Jones ran for 800 yards. But we know that running for all those yards is not a great way to stay healthy in this business.
No.
When you've had neck issues and a torn ACL. So you're going to have to win from the pocket. You're going to have to do it with, a group of backs that are pretty much unnamed and, okay, kind of fingers crossed. And you're kind of crossing your fingers on the quarterback. And can the right tackle, who has not practiced this offseason from ankle surgery, and Evan Neal, can he look like the 7th pick in the draft?
Yeah. Godspeed to, we'll get to the Jets in a minute, but for me.
But if the quarterback, look, legitimately just watching practice last Wednesday, like they have legitimate, like Jalen Hyde, I think is going to take a step up, and I think Wandale is good in the slot, and I think Malik Neighbors just watching him move. Jason, I mean, he looks like he could be a star. Now,
freak show, yeah.
He does have this type of. He looks. I mean, they haven't had a guy like that since Odell. His rookie year. So, I mean, if the offensive line with Illuminor and John Ryan and, if it does come together and they can protect, I think Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, I think they can coach. Like, maybe they can surprise some people if everything goes right. And maybe the defense comes together under a new coordinator. Maybe they won't. They're certainly not going to blitz.
As much. No.
But they also took the ball away. They also took the ball away a lot.
Yes, they did.
So, that was you can say whatever they want about Wink, and I'm not here to defend him or that, he's someplace else now. But, they got a new guy coming in now, a new offensive line coach, Carmen Brasillo, coming in for Bobby Johnson. A lot of, there's a lot of fallout from that poor season last year. So we'll see how quickly the defense can come together and if they can keep them in games.
This is the In the Huddle podcast. We are breaking down the NFC East and the AFC East. Please check us out every week. You can subscribe on the Odyssey app. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can check us out. A lot of times we're going live on our Twitter. So at Baldy NFL, at Jason Lockenfor. You can watch us in real time on Twitter as well. All right, Baldy, let's go to the AFC East. I still can't talk myself out of the Buffalo Bills on paper right now, in large part because of the quarterback, as still the team to beat in this division. Are you with me?
Yeah. I was trying to talk myself out of it, Jason.
Me too.
Just because of the losses on defense from a year ago, changing coordinators, the loss of the top 2 receivers. I was trying to talk myself out of it. And then I was like, you know what? Nothing replaces stability in an organization. Sean McDermott all the way up to the top. And just what the talent that Josh Allen is, the dependable talent that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can talk about the interceptions last year. Okay. All right. The guy, counting the 3 playoff games, Jays, or 2 playoff games, counting the playoff games, he accounted for 51 touchdowns last year. 51 touchdowns between throwing and running for touchdowns. He ran for 18 touchdowns, 18 or 19 touchdowns. It's crazy. And, when they changed the offense and they put Joe Brady in charge, they became a run-first offense.
Yes.
And, Now he was a big part of that too, but James Cook looked like a legitimate RB1. And the offensive line, which they retooled last year, they got bigger at the guards. They retooled again this year at center. Connor McDermott goes over to center right now. They're bigger up front. Aaron Cromer is a very good offensive line coach. And I think Von Miller is going to be back, and we'll see. Look, you could say, but sometimes a year removed from that knee injury, you get Von back. I can't. I'm with you. I can't talk myself out of the Buffalo Bills, and largely because of the quarterback and the stability, and the fact that they've won 4 straight divisions, and they had to go on a streak last year to go win that division, take it from Miami, and they did it. And the coach had to make a tough decision, had to fire a coordinator, elevate another guy. No coach wants to do that, but sometimes you have to do it. And so they're capable of making the tough decisions. The injury bug really got him on defense. It really affected him. But I'm with you. The talent that Josh Allen, look, we know that Mahomes is, he's the guy. And, you need a lot of things to go right to keep winning like that. But Josh Allen is right there. He's right there talent-wise. And he's capable of winning Super Bowls. He just is. He just has that leadership. He has that type of talent. And more things just have to go right in the postseason right now.
Well, and Baldy, to put a bow on them, what I found myself leaning into is the fact that they already experienced the identity crisis. The personality crisis took place last year when they lose the Monday night game to the Broncos, right? And then you look at their identity, what they asked of those offensive linemen, how much they started running more on early downs, how much they started keying back into Josh Allen, leading the run game, mesh point stuff, Cook's role expanding in the pass game and the run game. Like, they already know it works. It already saved their season last year. So it's not like you're coming in this year having to convince everybody that, hey, because we don't have the defense we had anymore, we've got to go this other way. Like, they already got the results from it last year going the other way.
And look, I personally am a friend and a fan of Stephon Diggs, but obviously when you pay a guy that's been your leading receiver 4 straight years in a row and the most targeted guy to go away, you pay him to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does that unless you think you're addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
Unless you're thinking we're going to be better without this player. And look, I mean, maybe Josh Allen feels differently, but whether it's Keon Coleman or Mac Hollins, like Josh Allen, the great quarterbacks in this league are going to throw it to the open receiver, whatever their name is in the back of the jersey. Brady did it. Breeze did it. The great ones do it. And you can't remember their names after they're gone because they never go anywhere and do anything else.
Right.
Josh Allen's going to throw it to the open guy, however he finds it. And so I think they're going to be just fine. The 2 tight ends are legit, and Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, a lot of 12 personnel. Yeah,
a lot of 12 personnel. I think Kincaid could be a star in this business. We thought he was coming out of college, the way that he ran after the catch, much like what Detroit had last year in their rookie. So I think they're going to adjust just fine.
Miami Dolphins. I know that's another team you put eyes on. Part of the reason I like the Bills still, Baldy, is because I can't get there on Miami. Losing a guy like Wilkins, like their whole pass rush, they're hoping to get back from injury at some point. But as you just said with Von Miller, that first year back can be tough. Anthony Weaver, their new defensive coordinator, I think he's been dealt a tough hand. Like Calais Campbell now, I hope you're not planning to get more than 15 snaps a game. Like, I feel like that's a team that's built. It's a track team that can destroy you in the first 2 months of the season when it's 95 and humid in Miami. And as it cools off and as the weather changes and as things get more physical, I just can't get there on them. I just can't buy them.
Yeah. I mean, when they signed Calais, they were telling you, like, we have a bunch of guys on this defensive line right now, and they drafted, Chop Robinson. They drafted, some guys. You never know about rookie defensive linemen. Like most of them need a redshirt year. And, the 2 guys they're counting on, and Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, I don't know. I don't know when they're going to come back. The guys that played behind them, whether it's Van Ginkel or Manny Agba, they're gone. Seiler gone. Like, I mean, they've lost a lot. Now, I think they're okay in some other areas, but it starts up front. And so now my question is, can the offense be that good to overcome? Because even with Vic Fangio and the guys I mentioned that were there for much of the year, they were the 21st ranked defense in football last year. They weren't very good. And so now you're rebuilding the defensive front, and there's just a bunch of guys there right now. And so can the offense put up 30 a game? They probably can, at least to start with, before some of these track stars of theirs start going down. If they do, you hope they don't, but they all went down last year, whether it was Achane or Mostert or, Tyreek or Jalen, they all went down. And so, and then I don't know. It's hard to figure out just, the quarterback's upset. He's seen all these guys get signed. And he's like, what more do you want me to do? I just did whatever he said I couldn't do. I just stayed healthy for 18 straight weeks. I led the league in all these categories. And I'm just going to be sitting out here like this? Like, I know, like, Tua is wired a little bit different. Like, it's not greed, and he's not going to not come to camp, and he's going to play. But it sure would be prudent for them to get this thing done and locked up. And so that nobody has to ask.
I think they're going to. And if you're him, how are you taking less than Trevor Lawrence? Like, what's Trevor Lawrence done that I haven't done?
Exactly. And so, and he makes it all go. And everybody, Tyreek says, best quarterback I've ever played with. Mike Daniels sings, McDaniels sings his praises. Like, I mean, he's getting all of the accolades from everybody that you want to get without anybody volunteering. I mean, they're just coming out with it. Like, okay. And so we know the owner can write a check with the best of them. So it's just kind of bizarre to me that this thing is still dangling out there.
Yeah, I bet they get it done. But obviously the specter of the brain trauma he's already experienced.
Well, I'm sure that's a huge
complicated issue. Yeah. But I think he'll get paid. I think he'll get paid. I think he'll get a top of the market deal. Speaking of bizarre, let's go to Florham Park. I don't get into OTA superstars. I don't care who looks great in shorts in May. I really don't indulge much in fake football. But I do think, when you give a guy $80 million or whatever for 2 years, or maybe it's more like 90, and he plays 4 plays last year, and that's unfortunate for everybody. But this Aaron Rodgers thing, when minicamp is, I don't know. You could at least be in the building. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not. I mean, Hassan Reddick wasn't there. But, Hassan Reddick he's in and he's out. He was like this in Philly. You're trading for a guy that wants a new contract. Yeah. That's why they didn't sign him in Philly. They took Bryce off instead. Right. They weren't going to give him long-term money. So you take them, some of these guys, they're looking at Nick Bosa, they're looking at all these guys that got paid at that position. And they're like, I want my bag. It's business. So I don't know if he's going to be there during training camp. I really don't. He's kind of got him over a barrel. They need him. But the Aaron Rodgers thing, I was there last Tuesday. And, Robert Saleh has got to – look, the media is the media. We're just asking questions. We're just listening, answering. So if the quarterback isn't there, why isn't he there? It's mandatory. Are you going to find him? Oh, it's unexcused, right? So now the head coach is in an awkward position because he's just saying. So then I'm sure the owner isn't happy that the coach is. So it's whatever anybody wants to think about the situation, it's just the Jets. It never just quiets down and you feel like the team is just busy at work. And so that's and Aaron knows that. That's my take is, okay, I know, Aaron, you were there every day. You went through OTAs. I know you know the offense cold. But, why put your coach, why put the team in that spotlight where you go, oh, here we go again, And so then, okay, that's Aaron. But then, okay, we got to get this offensive line fixed. So you're going to invest in Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses at 33. How many games are you going to get?
Good luck.
it's just tough. It's tough when the injuries start. Like I was there at 33 with the injuries, and all of a sudden, like you got to be on a pitch count for practice, and you're just trying to get to the game, and you're trying. It's hard. It's hard when you're looking at teams like Philadelphia that got healthy tackles and healthy line, and they're just there, and you could practice them hard. And if you want to give Lane Johnson a day, you can give him a day, but you know what you're getting. It's like it's a wing and a prayer for this team. If everything goes right, which never goes right for the Jets, and I'm not saying past history is an indicator of this season, but the past history says nothing. It's not all going to go right. It never does. And so it's just going to be one of those. They did it right. They gave them all these national games early, and all the networks are holding their fingers, starting on Monday night in San Francisco, that they can stay reasonably healthy, and we can. Because if it's going good, they're going to be at the talk, and you're going to get the sound bites. You're going to get everything that the media wants. And that's why they front-loaded them with all these national games early.
Well, and I think really, too, the absence, I think you were hinting at this. To me, it just speaks of complete and utter disregard and disrespect for the people who are supposed to be Aaron Rodgers' superiors, who, to me, by his actions of saying, I don't need to be there, I'm going to cause this distraction for you to clean up my mess. He didn't go on social media ahead of time, right, and get in front of it. He didn't go on his buddy. He's got the greatest platform in the world where McAfee will lick his boots for 30 minutes, right? He didn't go on there and say, hey, guys, here's what's coming. I didn't want to hang my coach out to dry, so I'm going to tell you about. He did none of that. He put it all on them. Why? Because he doesn't give an F about them.
Yeah.
They rescued him. I got news for you, Baldy. Nobody else was taking this contract. Nobody else besides the Jets was going to do for him what Woody Johnson and these desperate guys did for him, right? And then they let him go all year. He doesn't play, but he's always running his mouth. He's always on TV. He's saying outlandish stuff, right? They let it go. Hard Knocks was all about him and everybody kissing his ass. And this is the thanks they get. The thanks they get is he couldn't be there for one weekend.
Like bigger than that, though, Jason. It's like their star players are sick of losing. I mean, Quinn Williams is sick of losing. And so that's why, I mean, I'm not saying anybody quit last year or anything, but, you saw this defense fall off, the map the last 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And so now I know the offense, the quarterbacks threw 11 touchdown passes last year. You're not scoring points, you're not winning games. But like these guys that have been there, they've gone through all of this. And I'll bet if Sauce was on here right now with us, they would tell you, like, it's great, recognition, all-pro, whatever it is. They're sick of losing on that side of the ball. And so they better get a good performance from the quarterback. They better start winning some games. This thing could completely collapse. Like I'm talking about, and Aaron said it, like, look, if I don't do my job, we're all going to be out of here. Well, that's true. They're all going to be out of there. And they're going to be at square one looking for a quarterback. And, guys are going to be looking to run out of there, play out their contracts, and go someplace else.
Yeah, I'll be playing the over on Jets running back receptions per game early in the year because I think it's going to be. And if you go look at his yards per attempt the last couple of years in Green Bay, there are already some trends that we're telling. Father Time is effing undefeated, okay? And this dude looks like he's fodder for Father Time. Baldy, we're going to end here on the Patriots. My assumption is the most interesting thing that the New England Patriots will do this year already happened, and it was at Tom Brady's roast. Like, I'm having a hard time finding a whole lot from a national level to get fired up about with the New England Patriots.
Well, I think the thing to watch this year, honestly, like the roster isn't very good. That looked like last year, that looked like a bad expansion team playing football, especially with Judon and Christian went down. They're two best defensive players. So that looked like a bad expansion team on any level, offensive line, running backs, receivers. And so I don't know if anybody could have been successful. But I think the thing that's interesting to me as I watch this team kind of rebuild from the ground up this year is just the departure from Bill Belichick and what Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo do and how they build this thing like that. It's because I think it's going to be done completely different. from player evaluations to how they draft to how they treat the media. Like, I just think it's just going to look and feel different. And I don't know if it's going to be better, but I want to see just how far of a departure it is from the way that Bill Belichick ran things for 20 plus years.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, Baldy. It's we'll see. Bill Belichick, the evaluator. Bill Belichick, the evaluator, didn't do him any favors, right? Like he didn't. The cupboard's bare.
So I don't know. I mean, everybody wants a win total on these teams and all that kind of stuff. Like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what it's going to take for confidence to kick in where young guys just feel like they're unbeatable. Sometimes that happens. We saw that happen in Houston last year. It happened pretty quickly with a lot of young players. And a new coach with the right amount of vibrancy, coaching ability, and just ability to communicate. Like, just watching D'Amico work on the sidelines was refreshing to me.
Yeah.
How he interacted with the players, and he was in their faces, and he was giving them the pat on the butt. And like, he just looked like he had the pulse of that team. So that's what I want to see from Gerard, and how he handles what might not be a very pretty season.
Yeah. Well, Bill Belichick's dating life might get more headlines than Patriots football this year.
Well, if that's true from whatever got posted yesterday, if that is in fact verified, that might very well be the talk in New England.
Yeah. Some of those jokes at that roast, in retrospect, seem even more telling. Well, this has been the In the Huddle podcast. We hope you enjoyed our breakdown of Trevor Lawrence contract and the AFC East and the NFC East. We'll be back next week. We're continuing to break down every division as we creep closer and closer to training camps. Our buddy Carl Dukes, I believe, will be back with us next week. Excuse me. Please, you can check us out live on Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app. We're available wherever you get your podcast, and we look forward to talking football with you again next week.